In my 14 years of lifting weights, I've tried literally everything. I failed at times, I've succeeded at times, but all the experience I've had have brought me here today. So now as a doctor and a health and fitness coach, I see so many people going through the same struggles that I had. So if I could go back in time to the time where I was a beginner, here are the 6 deadly mistakes I'd avoid making. So mistake number 1 is focusing on fat loss first. One of my biggest mistakes, especially during my teen years, was spending so much time in a fat loss phase. I wanted abs, simple as that. Which if you're in that position too, I totally get it. But I started from a state where I was skinny fat, so I had no muscle at all, and I had fat covering whatever little I did have. So this means that I looked skinny, but also didn't have any definition either. So muscle mass peaks in your 20s and 30s, and you naturally lose about 8% of your muscle mass per decade afterward, and after 70, you start losing 12% of your muscle mass per decade. So it is especially important to start putting on muscle as soon as you can, because it'll never be as easy as it is now. When you're a teen and early 20s, your body is still maturing and growing, and it's honestly the most anabolic environment imaginable. So utilize this time to put on muscle because it literally will never be as easy as it is then. I started lifting when I was around 13, and after a long bulk, which I'll talk about my mistakes on that next, came a long cut. So for me, it was about half the year in a calorie surplus and the other half of the year in a calorie deficit. And let me tell you something, I didn't grow in height after I started lifting. Not because lifting stunts your growth or anything like that, it does not do that, but because I was restricting the calories I was supposed to eat that required me to grow. I was always one of the tallest kids in school growing up, and in 8th grade when I started lifting, I stayed the same while everyone else was still growing like weeds. At least I got wider, I guess. So unless you're actually fat, like a doctor told you you are fat, or you can grab your gut with 2 hands, spend the majority of your time putting on muscle. More muscle will help with fat loss in the long run. Muscle is metabolically active tissue, so the more you have, the more calories you need per day to maintain it, which will allow you to eat more in the future and still burn fat. A fat loss phase while eating more is the dream. So mistake number 2 is overdoing the bulking phases. So in the first mistake, I mentioned how I wish I stayed in a calorie surplus for longer, but at the same time, when I did do a calorie surplus in the past, I fell into the thinking that eating more will equal more progress. And that is not true at all. So for my first few years of lifting, I did crazy bulks and crazy cuts. My first year of lifting at 13 or 14 years old, I ate 3,500 calories a day, gaining about a pound a week. I think I gained around 30 pounds in 8 months. And I thought this would result in massive strength and muscle gains, and it didn't. It was massive fat gains. And this process made the whole thing very demotivating. And then I had to spend months trying to cut the fat off, and it just wasn't worth it in the end. So don't use bulking as an excuse to stuffing your face and eating way too much junk. You're only going to look and feel awful. Take it slow, aim to gain around 2 pounds a month if you're a beginner. It's a long process, but it will add up over time and be much more fulfilling. So mistake number 3 is not understanding consistency. I always heard YouTubers and fitness trainers telling me consistency was the most important factor to getting into shape, and it is, but consistency can mean a lot of things. Is it going to the gym at the same time? Eating the same things over and over again? After years though, I did figure it out. So truly proper consistency is knowing that you will be or should be doing these things for the rest of your life. So after a certain amount of time, exercising and eating right just starts to feel like a normal part of your day. Same way when you were a kid and you started brushing your teeth. You may have skipped a day, your mom smelled your stinky ass breath and told you to go to the bathroom immediately, and now I hope you just brush your teeth every single day. You don't think about it, it's just an unconscious part of who you are, and we should try to get fitness to be the same way. Similarly, as a teen boy or girl, you eventually started growing facial hair and wanted to shave, or body hair and wanted to shave if you were a girl, and now you just trim it or shave it. No second thought, it's just part of your routine. You notice when it's a little long, you cut it off, boom, done. Don't think about it. Same thing with eating and sleeping. So understanding consistency was a massive help for me, so it's important to internalize this message. If you know you will be in fitness for the rest of your life, the stress often goes away. Any form of impatience to reach a goal is reduced because this is who you are now. It's gonna happen eventually. You just know you shouldn't quit, and it's about getting into the proper mindset. With this, you have to live like you are that fitness guru, that ripped guy or girl with abs walking down the beach that everyone looks at. What are they thinking about? What's in their fridge? Where are they parking their car? What are they ordering at a restaurant? With this mindset, you can take the best journey toward your goals. And it teaches you proper sustainability with your diet and not stressing about the little periods where we inevitably fall off track a little bit. So mistake number 4 is the lack of structure. So the next major struggle that I experienced myself, along with honestly 90 or even 95% of my clients, is the lack of structure. So I give a similar speech to a lot of my clients, and it is directly from the experiences I had, especially in the first 5 years of my training. So to me, there's 2 different types of structure. There is like a microstructure, particularly with meals and workouts. So if you are going through your training sessions and just winging it, you're in for a world of stagnation. Workouts don't need to be meticulously planned, but when they are to a certain extent, it will allow for more progress. There is a science to the workouts. And while a lot of my audience was built for posting workouts on Instagram, trying a new cutesy little social media workout every time you're in the gym is not the most optimal. It's important to look at the bigger picture of a workout program. They are structured with the goal of hitting the right amount of sets and reps and progressing in the long term. So for sets, it typically is around 10 to 20 sets per muscle group per week. There must be some sort of repetition of exercises so you can practice them enough to improve, and practice really does make perfect here. Competitive athletes practice their movements over and over again. Muscle increases strength, but there's also the nervous system that's a factor. So with repetition of movements, the nervous system can become more efficient at recruiting all the muscle fibers that you have. That is how relatively small athletes can move some big weight. And with that, utilize progressive overload to add rate, reps, or sets over time. As for diet, that's the last mistake I'll talk about, but in short, you can't just wing it either. You have to have some sort of plan or framework because diet is most of your results. So beyond the microstructure, there is a macrostructure, like the bigger picture. So truth is, there will be times when fitness is hard. Pretend we are talking in December. What challenges does someone face in December? Maybe they have more time spent around family, more time around food. How would you navigate those challenges before they come up? I'm thinking about that leading up to Christmas. Come January, it's freezing. When I lived in Chicago, it was literally dark at 4 p.m., cloudy and gloomy every single day. I'm definitely not as active as I would be in July or August. How would I navigate that and plan ahead? But at the same time, in the summertime, I may be traveling more, going out, enjoying the weather, so that's a different thing to plan for. So these are all challenges that need a plan. One of the biggest patterns I see is people having a weekend trip and then they fall off. The holiday season hits and then they fall off track and can't get back on. If you are planning ahead and know there will be a lull in your training, you could taper down exercise frequency, change your diet a little bit. So if you can only make it 3 times a week for a few weeks, you don't ruin all the momentum and motivation you once had because these periods are planned. A lot of it is mental, but it's more than just inconsistency. If you've watched any of my other videos, you know I like to think of myself as a video game character. I have all these skills that I can eventually level up to level 99. My traps are already at level 99, my legs aren't, my endurance definitely isn't, flexibility sure is not. But when I'm not motivated, I switch to working on another skill. So over the long term, you will become more well-rounded. And since you're always adding new tactics in your routine will stay fun and exciting. So mistake number 5 is not controlling the weight. So stop training like a fool. Not in the workout program sense, but more so with the exercises themselves. So almost every single time I'm in the gym, I see usually a younger guy absolutely flinging the weight Sam Sulek style with zero control or time under tension. In lifting, there is the concentric where you're actually lifting the weight and the eccentric where you're lowering the weight back down. So most muscle and strength gains actually come from the eccentric portion, the part where you're lowering the weight. So if you're not controlling the eccentric, you are definitely limiting your progress. And the thing is, you are already in the gym lifting weights. Go the extra quarter step and control the weight to maximize your progress. Take 2 to 3 counts to lower the weight as a guide. That's pretty good for the most part. I didn't do this for my first 5 years of training in an attempt to optimize my strength gains, and it definitely limited my growth, so definitely a regret. And on a similar note, just use good form. I've had a herniated disc, hip strains, ab strains, rhomboid strains, bicep and tricep tendonitis, and many more. This is all from improper form, fighting through grueling, both visually grueling and physically grueling sets. So as a rough baseline, for chest, keep it puffed to elongate the muscle fibers. Press and fly with your arms about 45 degrees to the side. For back, your shoulder blades should move in the direction of the movement. So when you're reaching forward, shoulder blades will come forward, and then you retract it when you're pulling back. Elbows close to your sides will target more lats. Elbows flared will target more rhomboids and traps. Lateral raises, you don't want to do them directly to the side. Do them slightly in front of you in the scapular plane. That's going to target that muscle better. For full body movements, brace your core like you're about to take a punch right before you're about to do the rep. And if you want more form guides like this, I'll stop ranting, let me know, and I'll make a separate video. So mistake number 6 is not paying attention to diet. This mistake will literally make or break you, and it is all about diet. So a lot of people get put off by diet. You think you have to give up snacking on junk food, eating at restaurants, enjoying chicken nuggets, maybe that's just me, or giving up wild nights with the boys. And that's false. I've built a pretty good physique eating some sort of junk food almost every single day. I have some fudge in the fridge right now. I know I never really have fudge, but it's in the fridge. So in recent years, I've pivoted to a more whole foods related diet. Just for health purposes though, there's not really gonna be much of an added physique benefit. So because you truly can eat whatever you want and still make progress in the gym, calories in versus calories out is the biggest determinant. It is a matter of thermodynamics and the laws of physics. So for anyone watching this that is still new to the fitness game, you don't have to give up all the things you enjoy in an effort to build a good physique. Like I mentioned earlier, it is about having a structure and a plan. So for me, it's having an if it fits your macro style plan where I have a calorie and macro target based on my size and goals. I'll then do intermittent fasting as my schedule for eating, usually starting my window at 12 p.m., ending at 7 p.m. For food choices, 90% of it is some sort of carnivore combined with a Mediterranean style diet. So think a lot of meat, fish, fruits, veggies, yogurt, olive oil. And then the other 10%, I have some fun. Like I mentioned before, my wife Abby loves to bake, so there's always a dessert in the fridge. The foodie in me likes trying new restaurants, food trucks, and recipes, and there can be balance. Look at the bigger picture of calories and macros. Another aspect to make dieting less daunting is to think of calories over the course of the week rather than the day. So if you're eating 2,000 calories per day, zoom out, congrats. Now you get 14,000 calories per week. If you think about it this way, way less daunting if you do fall off track slightly on one day, because you can make up for it. And I wish I knew this way earlier. So this does look a lot less overwhelming and allows for a whole ton more flexibility. So these are my mistakes from my last 14 years of training. So my takeaway overall, the key to building muscle is to stay in a calorie surplus for as long as possible. Keep it slow to put on muscle and minimize fat. Keep a structure with your diet and training. Control the weight, stay consistent, and consistently watching my videos. I'll catch you next week.